We'll first discuss about what is domain adaptation. So it's very much relevant for the autonomous driving that we train a model in one kind of situation. Let's say in a summer, object detection models would work in a different situation. So it's a rainy or it's a winter or it's an overcast situation. So these are very practical situations. So our traditional machine learning algorithms are not able to handle those things. So we'll see how we can tackle those things. So we'll discuss about the issues and solution, and again we'll discuss about how we'll encounter those challenges in the learning process. I'll also present one case study on domain adaptation for object detection, and then we'll talk about the career option and how to get those learning resources to access for this kind of things. Okay, so let's get started. So I'll first talk about what is domain adaptation. So take a simple example. So I'm building a Android application for object recognition, but I'm only crawling the web and getting very good quality images from Flickr to build that application. And I have handed over this application to the user, but some of the users might have the low cost mobile camera, and they go to the real world and they try to detect those objects. So it does not perform well because there is a big domain gap between the training data set and the test data set. So in our traditional machine learning algorithm, we have this assumption that training and test data set should come from the same distribution. But this is not the case in real world scenarios. Here, training data set and test data set are coming from two different distributions. So the goal is that can we learn some sort of representation which is domain invariant? So that we'll be looking forward to. So simply you can see an example. So in domain adaptation terms, there are two domains. One is source domain and another one is target domain. So source domain is the one for which we have a huge amount of data as well as we have the level information. But in the target domain, we may not have that much amount of data, and we don't have the level information as well. So you can see in this slide that source domain is coming from Amazon dataset, where we have keyboard, bag, and bicycle. And the target dataset is coming from webcam dataset, which will also have the images like bag, keyboard, and bicycle. But if you train a model only on the source and you would like that this model should also perform as good as it was performing on the validation set of source, it will fail in the target dataset. So this is our goal. So let's say these are the very well-known data set for any domain adaptation this application. So this is Caltech 256, Amazon DSLR, and webcam. So our goal is that we train a model on any of this domain, and then it should perform well on other domains like DSLR, webcam, or Caltech 256. Similarly, some people came up with the idea that this is a very time-consuming as well as very costly task to annotate the images, especially when it comes for segmentation. Then it takes a lot of time to annotate image. So some people came about that why can't we learn our model into the synthetic domain, and we can adapt those models to the target domain, which will have the real world images. So generating a synthetic image is very easy using the simulation, and also it will be cost effective, and the chances of making mistake is also minimal because manual work is not involved over there. So we are not doing the hand leveling for those cases. So these are the interesting challenges. Even I think there are some challenges also running on in this regard, where they give you this synthetic data set to train your model, and then again your model will be tested on the real world images. So I think the VisDA, you can go and access that. This is the VisDA challenges there. Okay, so let's talk about the deep visual models. So as you know that deep visual models are very good at object detection and classification. So in their initial layers, it having the low level information. As we go deeper, it is having the mid level representation, and in the outermost layers we'll have the high level representation, and then after that we'll have some discriminator to find the classification or detection. After the inception of AlexNet in 2012, we see that the ImageNet challenge was it was a kind of boost, and it looked like that we have achieved remarkable progress in computer vision, and the progress has continuously increasing from 2012 onward, because different deep architectures are coming, and these things are progressing day by day. Still, there are real world challenges which people have started to address now. Even if there is a deep model which is trained on, let's say, huge corpus of ImageNet, and which supplies such images which are having low resolution. So, I mean, our simple intuition will be that since we have trained our model on such a huge corpus of ImageNet, so it should perform very well on the test data set as well. But the dog is not recognized in this case. So the challenges are with this dataset bias, because there might be many situations which are not well covered in those dataset. Like the images might have the low resolution, there might be motion blur, and the pose variety will also be there. So those challenges are there for, and due to this, the steep models fails. And we try to address these challenges. Okay, so let's formally define the domain adaptation. So our goal is that we do the training on the source data set, and we do the testing on the target data set. So please make these things clear. There are two domains over here. One is source domain and another one is target domain. So these are basically two distributions I'm talking about. So source distribution is the one for which we have huge amount of data set, and it is usually represented like probability distribution, where we have this x's and y's, and the target distribution is represented as pt, where xt comma yt. So it can have limited levels, or it may not have level at all. So our goal is that if you could learn a model on this source data set, what should I do so that it will perform very well on the target data set as well. Okay, so now we'll try to solve it. So when we first hear about it, so what comes to our mind when we listen that, we have a training model which is trained on a large amount of data set, and we want to use that for our application where we have very limited data. So yeah, that's one of the possible solution. And it works in many cases. But what if we don't have level in the target domain? Then it becomes really interesting and challenging. So now we'll see that how do we learn this domain adaptation techniques. So our goal is that somehow we have to extract the domain invariant features from the source domain. So in a way, we have to transfer knowledge from source to target, and that knowledge comes in terms of shared feature, model parameter, or the source instances. And again, we want to improve performance on the target domain. So in their PhD thesis, this Pengefi has nicely represented these things. So this is your source domain. You get a feature mapping, and then you have a model trained. So then we can do this kind of transformations, like the instance can be transferred, feature can be transferred, the trained model can be transferred, and then we'll try to learn using this information in the target domain, and we expect to have a very good performance. So one idea is that instead of directly solving this source to target adaptation, can we bring source a bit closer to the target, or closer a bit, or target a bit closer to the source, and then we should apply some adaptation technique. So the problem is that if we directly apply some domain adaptation technique, and the domain gap is high, then those methods are not very much effective, because once you do the theoretical analysis of domain adaptation, you get to know that there are some constraints on the domain gap between source and target. So when the domain gap between source and target improves, your accuracy will improve. So in that direction, there was a paper called Progressive Domain Adaptation. So they have proposed this idea that first we should get closer to the target, and then we should do the adaptation. So it's a two-step adaptation. So in my case study, I just added one more state of complexity, where I was bringing the target again closer to the synthetic source. So that I'll explain into the next slide. Okay, so the problem scenario is that we have to do the domain adaptation from source to target, but we are not doing the direct adaptation. Instead, we are going to the synthetic domain. Synthetic domain means we'll have, you might have heard about this style transfer. synthetic image generation also works on the same principle. So synthetic image will have the content of the source and style of the target. That again we will see in the detail when we'll be talking about the methods which we use to generate these synthetic images. I know these are the usual notation. We we notate source with S, synthetic source with SS, target with T, and synthetic target with TS. And we do the with domain adaptation from synthetic source to synthetic target. And this is the overall proposed architecture. So just pay attention because it is a little bit complicated to understand. So you should pay some more attention to it. So see what I'm doing. So first understand the application of CycleGAN. So CycleGAN is helping us to get a mid-level representation. So let's say I am going from source to target, and in between I'm using a CycleGAN to create a synthetic source. Then the synthetic source will have the content of source and the style of target. I have a target, and again I'll use CycleGAN. Then we'll have a synthetic target. So the synthetic target will have the content of target and the style of synthetic source. And then we apply some well-known adaptation techniques, and then we'll have a model. So improve the accuracy. I mean, we can also think about doing some weakly supervised detection, since we don't have any label in the target domain. But using this weakly supervised detection, we can generate levels for the target images, and then we can again fine-tune the model to get a better accuracy. So we'll split these parts and then we'll discuss one by one. So then it will be more clear to you. Okay, so it's a small primer on detection network. So we have an image, and then we use some conv layers to get a feature map. And so this is the architecture of faster RCNN. So this is an improvement over RCNN and fast RCNN. So earlier versions were using the selective search algorithm, which was making it very slow because it used to get 2000 proposals per image, and that is why it was very slow in that nature. So in the faster RCNN, they replaced that selective search algorithm with a region proposal network. So what happens that now once we have the feature map, we pass this feature map to a proposal network, so which gives some proposals where the objects might be possible, and possibly the objects will be there in that location. And then we pass that proposals to the classifier, so it will regress those bounding boxes, and again there will be a classification loss as well. So this is where we train it. So I have also mentioned the source. You can read those papers. They are very good papers to go through. And okay, so let's talk about the image generation, how it is happening. So so I hope many of you might be aware about the GAN. So in GAN, I'll just give an intuition. So what happens that let's say somebody is trying to counterfeit some currency, and he's trying to pass through a police checkpost where police is checking the currency, and the goal of police is to detect whether it is fake currency or it is original currency. And the goal of counterfeit, the one who is doing the counterfeiting, is to create such kind of currency that it will pass through the police. So this is how they train this network. So there is a generator and there is a discriminator. So generator is the one who generate this currency, fake currency, and the goal of discriminator is to discriminate between the fake currency and the real currency. And over the time, the one who is doing the counterfeiting get expert in a way that he can generate a currency which police won't be able to detect whether it is fake or a real currency. So this is the basic principle for GAN. And so we use CycleGAN. So apart from the GAN, it's like an extended version of GAN. So very famous application is that they are trying to create zebra from horse. So what happens that we pass this real image to the generator, and in the latent domain it tries to create some sort of representation. Let's say we call it fake zebra. We also have a real zebra, and the goal of discriminator is to identify between the fake zebra and a real zebra. But the challenges is that, if you will simply use this architecture, so this is usual, GAN architecture. So what happens that, this generated images might not be, well informed. It might not be zebra. Still, this architecture converges. So in order to resolve this issue or to get this meaningful representation of fake image, they come up with this idea of cycle GAN, where they use additional generator, and they again try to reconstruct image A from this fake image, and in turn they use a cycle consistency loss between this reconstructed image and the original image. So now this latent representation will have some meaningful value. So this is the way, they have generated the zebra image from the horse image, and the same knowledge is being used for our case, where we are trying to generate one source of image from the another source. So that we'll see next. So yeah, so let's talk about the adaptation network first. So in the architecture, I mentioned that once we'll have the two domains ready with us, we'll do adaptation over there to get the final model. So this is our adaptation network. So what happens that, it consists of three architectures. So it is having feature extractor, it is having a detection network, and this is having a domain classifier. So this gradient reversal layer helps us to generate this domain invariant features. So what happens that during the back propagation, you simply negate the gradient flow direction. So it enforces this encoder to create such kind of representation which will confuse this discriminator. And over the time, now this feature representation will have this domain invariant representation. This is what we are interested in. So we should get that kind of representation, which is does not depend upon the parameters which affect us during this domain transformation. So this is overall adaptation network. I have mentioned the source, so you can go through that. It's a very nice paper to go through. So these are the data set what I have used. So there are three data set. One is Kitty data set, and another one is Cityscape data set, and the Foggy Cityscape data set. So the Kitty data set is having 7,481 images in the training set. So these are very famous data set that is used for object detection and segmentation for autonomous driving. And the difference between this Kitty and Cityscape is that the camera position is different in both these data set. And the difference between Cityscape and Fog is that Cityscape data set is taken in more natural situations, where whereas this Foggy data set is having fogs around it. So the goal is that how do we adapt from Cityscape to Foggy Cityscape? Similarly, the goal is that how can we do the cross camera adaptation from Kitty to Cityscape. So this Foggy Cityscape data set is again generated using the Cityscape only. So they uses the depth map, and they create three different levels of fog. So the amount of data set present in the Foggy Cityscape is 3 times the data set which are present in the Cityscape. Okay, so now we'll see how the generated images look like. Okay, so here I'm generating from Kitty to synthetic city. So the top row correspond to the Kitty images, and I'm trying to generate an image which will have the content of a Kitty data set, but it should have the style of Cityscape. So if you would have seen some of the Cityscape data set, you will see that the Mercedes logo is there in the Cityscape data set. So it has tried to, the kind of, you can see the background is completely changed, and a couple of artifacts has also come. So these are the disadvantages as well. These artifacts should not appear. Okay, but we don't have much control over there. So this is the generated images. And similarly, we try to generate a foggy cityscape dataset from the cityscape dataset. So these are the original cityscape dataset, and using CycleGAN, we are trying to generate some fog, and then our goal is that it should look like closer to what is actual foggy dataset is looking like. So in the bottom row, you can see that clearly fogs appear in the dataset, and that has been generated completely using the CycleGAN. Yeah, so one more advantage of CycleGAN is that it's not one-to-one mapping, because since we don't have the level information in the target domain, we cannot rely on these methods which uses the one-to-one mapping. So I think there are some methods like Pix is there, is one algorithm which also does this image translation, but it is based on one-to-one mapping. But we don't have that flexibility because we don't have level information in our target dataset. So okay, so now we wanted to visualize that. Okay, let's say we did this synthetic translation. So does it really help? How can we intuitively say that this is a good idea to do this? So for that, we do this TSNE plot of the dataset. So this is Kitty versus City dataset. So in natural domain, if you will do a TSNE plot of, I think I had done a random sampling and selected 500 images from both the domains, and then I have plotted it using the TSNE. So in the original natural image domain, they look like this one. But once we try to plot in synthetic domain, they looks like this one. So it is clearly visible that the distribution of red dots and the distribution of black dots are not similar. But into the synthetic domain, they are more aligned. So now it looks feasible that if I create a model in this synthetic domain, then it might be very much easy to do the adaptation in this direction, because now I think the distribution is somewhat similar, so it should work much better compared to directly doing the adaptation in this natural image domain. Okay, so these are the some experimental results. So we have used faster RCNN architecture, and in the backbone we have VGG16, and we have used this intersection over union is 0.7, and then we try to compare our results with state-of-the-art methods. So you can see that directly applying this fast, simply we are training a model on model using the fast RCNN, and we are trying to test that model into the target domain. So average precision is very low, it's 28.8 only. But using this kind of techniques, the progressive adaptation has moved to 43.9. Similarly, what I propose to do this 2-stage adaptation, so it also reaches to toward the same. So this is the current state of the art accuracy or average precision for this data set. So this also reached toward 43.8. All right, so similarly we do this weather adaptation where we are trying to adapt from natural domain to foggy domain. So there are I think there are 9 classes, 9 or 8 classes are there in this experiment. So here also we can see that this synthetic image generation and then doing the adaptation helps, because directly doing the faster RCNN having very low accuracy, whereas this progressive DA improves a lot over these different categories, and mean average precision also improves. So originally it is just like I think 19.57, but it improves to 33.7 and 36.88 in progressive DA and the architecture what I proposed. All right, so okay, the goal was that, I mean, okay, so we have done I mean, we have done till here. So what if we could do some, weekly supervised detection, and then we can again fine tune our architecture so that the accuracy should improve. So I mean, this is still a ongoing progress, but I'll overview. I'll give you an overview of, I mean, what exactly we do in weekly supervised detection. So what we do that, I mean, we have a trained model in the source domain. So we supply our unlabeled target images to that model and get the prediction. Then the goal is that what all samples should we select? I mean, how can we derive a criteria that the kind of samples which we are accepting as a true detection, that are actually true detection? Because if there will be some false detection, and if we will assume that these are the correct detection, and we'll use those samples to fine tune our network, then the learning will be in a completely different direction, and the performance will be very bad. So we have to be very careful that we have to choose those samples which have been detected correctly. Also, that should be a harder sample. Otherwise, the samples which are being easily detected in that network, and we are trying to do the fine tuning using that samples, then there will not be very much things to learn about, because already model is able to detect those bounding boxes very confidently. So we won't be able to change a lot. So that is also another challenge. So it's a very nice problem. I mean, there are many ongoing work in this direction, so you can also look into these things. So this is overall goal. So we have to look for the samples which have been detected correctly, and those are very large sample. I mean, sorry, those are very difficult samples to detect. So the simple intuition I can give that, I mean, how do you decide that the samples are very difficult? So simply you can do the clustering, and then you can try to see that how far these samples are from the source distribution. So if a sample is very far from the source distribution and it is being detected correctly, then this is a hard sample which has been detected correctly. Then I mean, we should include this kind of samples to our training set into the next iteration, and it is going to improve our performance. So overall idea is like this only, but there are also different algorithms which try to resolve these issues. Okay, so I have given a high-level overview. So in case you are very much interested, I mean, how the maths behind these algorithms are there, you can definitely refer to these papers, and you can get an idea of how this mathematics runs behind these techniques. So I mean, they are very good papers. So if you are working in these directions, then you must refer to these papers. And also, this kind of works are very I mean, they are ongoing works. So in case you are interested to do some research, or if you want to be aware about the current state of the art models, or I mean, the machine learning and deep learning things are growing very fast. So you also have to do some things to keep your speed, I mean, so that you can match the speed of the way they are progressing. So for that also, I mean, this is very important things to do. Also, if you want to be part of some research and development team, or you are still the part of research and development team, then you should follow these directions, and this will help you to keep you updated, and you will be aware about these recent methods. So the current research trend is that everyone is focusing on unsupervised learning, because there are huge amount of data set, I mean, I can say unstructured data set which are available today, and annotating those data set is very time consuming as well as very costly. So to cut the deal, everyone is interested to find some unsupervised learning algorithms which will overcome those situations. So uh, if you want to pursue your research oriented career, then these directions will be very much helpful for you. You should try to follow the conferences which are going on. So I'll explain, I mean, what are resources you should be referring to, so that you will be aware about uh, their uh, updates. So, there are many summer schools. I mean, and also due to this lockdown, everyone is presenting those things online, and those resources are available to everyone. So you can easily refer to this summer schools like Smile is one. I think Russia is doing this. Again, MLSS every year they do this summer school where they bring some dignitaries and some talks happens on this research. I mean the latest advances in deep learning and machine learning domain. So you can definitely refer to this, and you should also follow up. I mean, irrespective of your domain, let's say you are working into the NLP domain or you are working into the computer vision domain. So there are some reputed conferences in each of those domains. So you should, keep an eye of those domains. You should look for the best papers, and you should try to implement some of those papers by your own. So this will give you more confidence, and this will be very helpful in your career. And again, I know if somebody is not aware about the deep learning for computer vision and they want to give some head start, then there is a very good course. It's called CS231, I think it's by Stanford, and it is available online. I have shared the link as well. So you can refer to these courses. And apart from this, there are also many courses. So currently, some work is going on into the self-supervised learning, where they try to learn. I mean, they try to learn using the existing data only. I mean, so they kind of create some level, some sort of, some deformity into the images, and they try to learn those things. And I mean, it's a completely new thing to do. So there are some courses on that as well. You can refer to the YouTube, and there are playlists available. So you can go through that as well. Also, there are some good podcast going on. So whenever you are free, or you are walking, so during that time you can enjoy listening to this podcast. So I have mentioned one by Lex Friedman. So he again brings some experts from the particular domain, and then he do some discussion, and he poses some question on what all things they have done, and where exactly they see that this field will be going on. So 2 3 talks recently I have also listened, like one by Jitendra Malik, Elon Musk also they have brought in. So he talked about, his autonomous car. So those things are very nice things to follow, and it will really help you to keep updated with the domain. So okay, so these are the references which I have followed for our presentation.